O Great Spirit, saints and sages of all times, of all places, O ye pathmakers of old, most beloved and precious Ishtadevata, in all of thy names and all of thy forms, O infinite, infinite Lord of stillness, Namaste. Most beloved ancestors of our bloodlines, of our adopted lines, of our friendship lines, of all of our spiritual lines, Namaste. O ye powers that be of the air, the earth, the fire, the water, the ether, Namaste. Om Shri Papaji Namaha. Om Shri Lahiri Mahasayaji Namaha. Om Shri Paramahansa Yogananda Ji Namaha. Om Shri Satguru Shaliji Namaha. Om Shri Goswami Kriyananda Ji Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sweep clear our path. May this sacred time that we share together be a blessing to each of us. May the cobwebs of our minds and our karmas be swept clear, that we might see that which needs to be seen, and hear that which needs to be heard, and know the right action at the right time. Namaste. Namaste. There once was a man. There once was a man who had a wife. There once was a man who had a wife who had a son. There once was a man who had a wife who had a son, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters. There once was a businessman who had a wife who had a son, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters. There once was a very wealthy businessman who had a wife who had a son, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters. There once was a wealthy businessman who had a wife who had a son. And every day that businessman went to work. Upon the birth of his son, he placed blinders upon himself so he could not see. Upon the birth of his son, he built a wall around his heart with only one window, and it shone upon his wife and his son. There once was a man who had a wife who had a son, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters. And out of the corner of his eyes in that window, he could see the daughters. But in the front of the window, the man could only see the wife and the son. There once was a businessman who had a father who was a great musician. He had a beautiful voice. He chanted and sang every day. Om Bhurбhuvah Svaha. Om Hum Jum Saha. He sang. He played his instruments without dropping them. Every day, the father would walk through the gardens, playing his instruments, singing his songs, reading his poetry, drawing his art. People from around the world came to hear the father play his music, sing his songs, and view his beautiful art. Listen to his poetry. There once was an artist who had a grandson who loved the music, who loved the art, who loved the song, who sat at the feet of his grandpapa every day while Papa was at work. The boy grew. His talents grew. The Papa hired a tutor, many tutors, to teach the boy. The tutors loved the boy, and so they were quiet. They never told the Papa that the boy was sitting at the feet of Grandpapa, and that they spent all of their time teaching 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters. While the son was learning everything he could from the Grandpapa, the daughters learned everything they could from the tutors and the Grandpapa. After many years, an afternoon comes. The man, the very wealthy businessman, decides to come home in the middle of the afternoon. The first time in 18 years he's come home in the middle of the afternoon. But it was a big day. His son's birthday was coming up. His son's 19th birthday was coming up. He was going to bring him into the business. He was going to make him his official heir to the business. He drives up to the house. It was more than a house. It was really a mansion, if you will, or a big mansion. And he hears, as he gets out of the car, Om Bhurбhuvah Svaha. It doesn't sound like his father. Who could that be singing in that beautiful voice? And he follows the voice back to the gardens, and he sees his son sitting at the feet of his father. Strumming the lute. Papa strummed the harp. Son strummed the lute, and they were singing. And the man, the very wealthy businessman, was filled with rage. Rage beyond control. He raced forward into the garden and he reached over in front of his son and he grabbed that lute with both hands and smashed it. And he reached over to his father with both hands and grabbed that harp and smashed it. How dare you? How dare you corrupt my son with your music and your art and your poetry? It is worth nothing. Nothing, I tell you, nothing. The only thing that is worth anything is these gold coins. And he reached into his pocket and shoved it in the face of his father. This is what is of value, I tell you. This and nothing else. His son collapses on the floor, on the ground, sobbing. Oh, my lute, my poor lute. The father looks up at the businessman and says, oh, my son, what happened to you? And the son, filled with rage, just rage, says, I know what is best for my son. I know, only I know what is best for my son. Get out, get out, get out. My son, this is my land. This is my home. I have invited you and your family to live here all these years. Do not forget, this is mine. And if I choose to share my gifts with your son and he chooses to study with me, it is his choice. My son, it is his life. No, he must do as I say. And the man looks at his son and raises his hand as if to strike him. And he looks down and he sees his son, tears pouring down his face as he's leaning over his broken lute. He's sobbing. He's sobbing. He can't stop sobbing. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done, Father? Do you not know that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters who have studied with all of my tutors? 6 daughters who want to come to your business, who want to join you, who want to carry your legacy. Do you not see? Do you not know this? But as for me, you can break my lute. You can break the harp of my grandpapa. Instruments can be broken. But Father, you do not know what is best for me. You do not know what is best for my life. And with this, the businessman collapsed as if a balloon picked by a pin. Collapsed upon the ground, sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. My whole life, I've been sure that I know what is best for you. And while I was working and making this gold and getting you tutors, which, by the way, did you ever go to? Of course, Father, of course I went to your tutors. But you have 6 daughters, all of whom are much, much, much better, much more knowledgeable, much wiser than I am in the ways of business. Daughter number 3 looks and follows you with her eyes and does everything she can to prepare herself to be your heir. The others are working with her. What is wrong, Father, that you cannot see? With this, the young boy picks up his lute, reaches out his hand to his grandpapa. Grandpapa picks up the broken harp pieces, and they leave the garden, leaving the businessman with his thoughts, his reflection, and his never-ending tears. As the old man walked by his son, he reached down and placed his hand upon his head and said, "My son, your only problem is all these years you thought that you knew what was right for everybody else. Now maybe, my son, it is time for you to be happy." And with that, the grandson and his grandfather left the garden. Many, many, many hours later, the day had become dusk, the dusk had become night. The moon had risen, the moon had set, and the sun was rising again. The businessman opened his eyes. And saw that he was surrounded. The very wealthy businessman in a circle in the center. The very wealthy businessman who had a wife, who had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters, and a son, and a father, surrounding him. The boy and the father, the boy and the grandpapa, playing their music softly in the background, singing to heal the man. And all the daughters sitting, waiting to be seen. And as the sun rose for the first time, he opened his eyes and saw anew, as if he had never seen them before, his beautiful 7 children. Saw them all equally sitting around him, with his beloved wife, shining her love upon him, reaching out her hand to lift him, that he might begin to walk his life anew, that he might change his thinking anew, that he might walk in the world anew. He might come home a little earlier, share the burden of his work with his family in all of the ways that he could, and that he might begin to heal, that the confinement of his thoughts be lifted. thus it was, and thus it will be for you. What is the thought that you're thinking that you would cause you to pick up a lute and drop it on the ground and break it? That would cause you to pick up a harp and drop it on the ground and break it? That would cause you to say to someone, no, I know, it's my way, my opinion, my thought that is right, not yours. How many of those do you have in your life? And you might say, I would never do that. I would never pick up a lute and break it, throw it on the ground. I would never pick up a harp and break it and throw it on the ground. Really? How often do you walk through your life, in your everyday life, and a thought arises about another person? You know, her hair would really look better if she would do this to this. You know the story. I was in Spain a few years back, and you see the color of my hair. Then I had a woman who was a tour guide who was, perhaps in her 60s, who had very, very black hair, dyed, obviously. And we had been touring together, she and I and my husband, just the three of us. This was our second day. And the morning of the second day, she comes in and she says, you know, I have to tell you, we don't like this. We. She kind of reached over and touched my hair. And I said, really? Who's the we? You know, we don't do that here. I can take you to a beauty shop if you'd like. Now, isn't that interesting? I still remember it. I wasn't offended by it. I found it kind of funny, to be honest, that she felt that her opinion about a color of hair should take precedent. So much so that her opinion had to come out of her mouth without even any thought of, what was I going to say? What was I going to think? When she reached over and touched my hair. Which is a little intimate, you must admit. Small thing. Yet we walk around the world doing this. She thought she knew better than me. The color of my hair should be. And she was willing to bring her whole culture to bear with her opinion. Now that's a little thing. In the same vein, you know, one of the Swamis who was from Italy moved back to her hometown in Italy, and a little silver had shown up in her head while she was away. Over time, this happens sometimes. And someone stopped her on the street and said, can I give you the name of a beauty parlor? Do you need to go someplace? Since you need to go someplace to get this taken care of, let me tell you where to go. Her neighbors stopping her on the street, having an opinion about something as simple as her hair. Maybe you say that's not important. But all these little things, your opinion about this, your opinion about that, your opinion about the other thing, your opinion about the jewelry the person is wearing, the clothes that they're wearing, the way that their nails are done, the way that their hair is done, the way that they walk, the way that they talk, the car that they drive, merges into your opinion about the way they're living their lives, about the way that they are choosing to believe about the nature of life. And the harder that your opinions become, the harder they become, the more difficult they are to change. The harder they come, the stronger they come together, the harder they smash together, the harder they all to dissolve. Thoughts are immortal, thoughts are eternal. Don't forget that. When a new thought arises in your mind, it's because you are relative to that thought today, at this moment. Yesterday you weren't relative to it. Tomorrow you probably won't be relative to it. But today, at this moment, you are relative to that thought. Now, that doesn't make that thought better or worse than any other thought. It just means that at this moment, you have given it priority. But think about this. A thought rises in your mind. Oh, there's a bowl of apples here. You don't just pick the apple. You examine the apples. Well, I wonder, should I have this one or this one or this one or... Oh, I don't know. And you pick one. Just like an apple, you're giving your thoughts priority. When you think a thought again and again and again and again, you're giving it priority. You're saying, you're more important than all the other thoughts I could think in the world. Now, depends on what the thought is, I guess. If you pick up the thought of enlightenment and you say, oh yes, this is important. This is important. I want to retain that thought. I want to sustain that thought. That thought is important to my well-being. And you do what is needed to do to make that thought stay and be consistent. And you do not apply that to everybody else. You don't say, because I want my enlightenment, well, Sally Sue, you should have your enlightenment. You don't say, oh, well, Julie G, you need to become enlightened. You say, no. That's for me. That's what I need, not what you need. And if you do want to, and you want me to show you how I got where I am, I will. But I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm not here to impose my thinking upon you or to have you become confined by my thoughts. The rage that the man who had the son felt when he saw his son playing music and singing and sitting at the feet of his grandfather. How often have you felt that rage when someone in your life did not do or was not living according to the way that you wanted them to live? There is a feeling state that we have as humans, and we use the word amour or love to describe that feeling state. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, sometimes you think, well, oh, it's the love of a mother for her child, or oh, it's the romantic love of a man for his wife, or the love of friends for friends, or the love of a child for a parent. But there's just love. We try to categorize it. We try to place it in categories. We try to put preferences, prioritize it. We try to say, oh yes, this is the best kind of love, and then there's this love, and then this is so strong a love. The love that people have for their animal pets, their animal friends, is a tremendously deep love. Tremendously deep love. And why? Mostly because the animals that live with them accept them. Accept them. Now there are types of love, and you have to ask yourself, when you think about love, and you think about your thoughts, how do I love? Do I love you because you do certain things for me? Will I love you if you get good grades? If you are kind? If you love me above all others? Will I love you if you live your life the way I think and say it should be lived? Or will you just love me? There's if love, there's because love, and there is love. You know, so often people say, I love you, 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 I love you. And time goes by, and the karma unfolds. And the karma unfolds that the time gate has finished, and the love of those people is no longer the same. And they no longer live together anymore. They get divorced if they were married. And acrimony arises between the two of them. Hatred arises between the two of them, if you will. What happened? What happened? If you really loved that person, if you loved them, and they needed to live their life another way, you'd let them go. If you really loved them, and they loved someone else, that other person was going to make them happier, you'd let them go. If you really loved them, you'd help them to become an artist. When you wanted them to be your heir apparent. If you really loved them, you'd help them to find their path, to find their way, even if it was exactly the opposite of what you wanted them to do, even if it meant letting go of your dream for them. Now, I can hear some of you saying, well, you know, my children are grown, they're off doing their things, I don't have children, how does this apply to me? Oh, it applies. More than any of us care to think. We must learn the practice, we must learn the skill of letting go. Letting go of the desires to control life. For life will not be controlled. This week we come to the doorway. March is here. March is coming, just a few days away. And we are coming into a great time of astrological change. Saturn will be moving into the zodiacal sign of Pisces, the end of this zodiacal cycle, and will bring forth great change. But that is only one, the beginning of the month. And then for the first time since 1777, I believe it is, Pluto will be moving into the zodiacal sign of Aquarius. Change is at the doorway. Change is here. I've been telling you for a while. Mars will be moving into the zodiacal sign of Cancer. For the first time in several years, it will move out of Gemini. What does that mean? What does it mean for you? It means that one needs to strengthen the skills of adaptability. You need to become more adaptable, to be able to adapt, adjust, acclimatize to the changes that life will bring. You know, there was snow on the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles this weekend. You know, blizzards in the mountains in the desert. Wow. Blizzards across the entire United States. And yet on the other side of the world there's droughts. The weather comes, the winds kick up, And they kick up within our lives as well as externally. And so what is to be done, really? What is to be done? And the first is to recognize really one of the greatest mystical truths, which is that it is always easier, much, much easier to change as the thought form is precipitating downward. You know, when something is liquid, when something is fluid, it's much easier to change. Above here, in your dream states, it's easier to change. When the thought first begins to rise in your consciousness, it's easier to change. Now, when it's solidified as a thought form, it's a little harder to change. When it comes out of your mouth as sound, then it's much harder to change. When you put those words onto paper or in form of some sort, many don't use paper anymore, but in form of some sort, it is even more solidified and harder to change. You make it into concrete, and it's very hard to change. So, what is to be done? Remember your dreams. Go into your dreams. As you fall asleep at night, it's very simple. Fall asleep more slowly. Take a minute or 2 or 3. Turn off your devices an hour before you go to bed. If you have time to take a warm, not hot, but warm shower, when you get home from work, take a warm shower. Turn off your devices an hour before bed. Read something inspiring. Don't listen to loud music. Breathe. Breathe softly. Do your tarka. Reflect upon your day. What has happened in this day? What did you do in this day? What needs to be changed in this day? Write it down so you do not forget. And then as you lie in bed and you're going into your dreams, you simply say, I will remember my dreams. I will remember my dreams. I will remember my dreams. Or if you have a problem you're trying to solve, you say, I wish to solve this problem. Let me remember my dreams. And visualize the problem as a symbol. You know, what is the problem? You see it, and see it in your dreams. And then you wake up in the morning and wake up slowly, slowly. So that before you open your eyes, your consciousness is aware. And you can remember your dreams. Hold them and crystallize them before you open the eyes. Don't, jump out of bed and get dressed or go to the bathroom or whatever and then try to remember your dreams. It must be done slowly. No matter how busy the rest of your day is, slow down before you go to sleep, slow down when you wake up. When you wake up, record your dreams. When you wake up, meditate, 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 meditate. Always wake up and meditate. Doesn't matter how long, but meditate, the first thing. And actually, I would say the second thing, it's better to write your dreams down first as you're in your meditation space, and then go into your meditation. Some of you are better to just softly dictate your dreams. But I do encourage you to stay away from the devices the first thing in the morning, and use the hand to write. You might prefer, as I was taught, is rather than writing out pages and pages and pages of dreams when you first wake up, is write the few dream symbols, even if you draw them. You dreamt about a dishwasher, you dreamt about a certain color. You write those words down, you go into your meditation, have your meditation, and then when you come out, those words will trigger for you and help you to remember the dreams. So what am I trying to say to you today? Do not be that man who had a son whose rage filled him so greatly that he broke the lute and broke the harp and was ready to beat his son because he thought that he knew what was right. I'm telling you, you may say, I don't have a son. I know you don't. I know you don't have a daughter. I know you don't. You have others in your lives. How many times are you grabbing onto a thought? Now, and if you happen to live on the earth, you happen to live in the Western world today, good heavens. It's simple. How many times have you grabbed a thought and the person with the opposite thought is sitting right next to you, sitting across the hall, sitting next to you as a neighbor, sitting next to you in the other part of the world, and they have an opposite thought. Do not freeze your thoughts, my beloved. Allow yourself to be free. If you wish to be free, you must free others. You must allow them the right to be free. If you wish to be free, they must be free also. If you confine them, you will be confined. Do not do that to yourself. No opinion is worth unkindness or cruelty to another. No opinion is worth confining another. You can get into a big philosophical discussion about that, but take it as it's meant. And apply it to your lives. And you will find that it is far more important to be happy, to be content. It is wisdom to be happy, to be content. Much more important than it is to be right. So I will end with this before we meditate. What is it that you think about somebody else's life? If you don't like what they're doing, what exactly do you think they should be doing? I don't know about you, but I have enough on my plate keeping my life in order, keeping my spiritual discipline in order, keeping my mind in order, keeping the emotionality of my mind in order. I've got enough to do without worrying about one or two or six others and what they're doing. Let them be free and you will be free. There once was a man who had a wife and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daughters and 1 son, and a gracious and loving father. And he woke up one morning and he was filled with Ananda. Let us meditate. Using the sipping breath, pull the energy from the limbs to the trunk. From the trunk, pull the energy into the spinal column. From the base of the spine, pull the energy up to the sun center. Move that energy as a golden ball of light out in front of you. Sweep it around to the left, encasing your entire being in golden light. Do this 2 more times. Expand that golden light and ascend upward. Above the building, above the city, above the state, above the continent, above the planet. Ascend as high as you are able to the highest realms. Find your meditation garden. And within that garden, you see a path. Enter upon the path. And you see it ascends into a forest. Walk along the path in the forest. Hear the creek running next to you. See the water dappling in front of you. The light dappling through the trees. The dewdrops along the leaves. The fresh rain dew upon the bark of each tree. The sun shining like a crystal through the dewdrops of water. The path opens to a meadow. Filled with flowers. And grasses. And dragonflies. And bluebirds. And hummingbirds. And finches. Every color of the rainbow. Shining upon you in this beautiful meadow. The path ascends further up. Narrower as you walk into the forest. Ascending with great ease. You see a brilliant light in front of you. The path opens. In front of you is a shrine, a beautiful shrine. radiant light pouring forth. Enter the shrine. Breathe in the light. Walk to the back of the shrine where the light becomes ever brighter. You enter into the first pool of light, feeling all of the old dissolving away. Walk through the pool to the waterfall of light, in all of its brilliant color pouring down upon you, pouring down upon your crown center, filling every cell of your being with light, in all of the variations you need. The golden light pours down upon you. Breathe in the light. Feel it pouring over you and through you, within you, around you. Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. The healing light pouring upon you, loosening, dissolving away all of the heavy karmas. Loosening, dissolving away the karma. Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. Walking forth from the waterfall into the pool, feel yourself clothed anew. Walking through the shrine, as you leave the shrine, you see your Ishtadevata. Together, the two of you return to the high place of meditation. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Aim Sarasvataye Namaha. Prananandam Paramasukadam Kevalamyanamurtim Bhavadidan Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namame Chaitanyam Shasvatam Shantam Nirakalam Nirandalam Nara Bindu Kalatitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dhyanamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchitananda Murtaye Nishprapanjaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Be thou blessed. Be thou blessed. Be thou triply blessed. Feel the golden dewdrops of Anandic bliss pouring down upon every cell of your being, and sup upon them at this moment. Become thus an ever greater blessing unto all of those who enter your aura. Namaste. Namaskar. Thank you for the blessings of your presence. Thank you for being here today. It is always a blessing to be with you and to share this time. Shanti.